Well, welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me today, and I'm really excited that we're going to be talking about prayer.
Yeah, we are. It's one of my most favourite topics to talk about.
That's good. And so I think we should start at the beginning. So what is prayer?
Prayer, very simply, it's the art of conversation between the person praying and God. It's communication. There's different types of prayer. They can be kind of narrowed down into a very specific type, such as thanksgiving, intercession, that's when you're praying for other people or needs in the world, confession, petition, adoration. But the essential basis of prayer is just a conversation with God.
That's really good. And so who can pray?
Anyone. Prayer is open to anyone. Just as we're talking now, prayer is me talking to God or you talking to God. It's not exclusive of someone leading in a church, for example. It's anyone, anywhere, at any time.
That's great. So there's no qualifications required. It's just faithful calling out to God.
If you feel that need to start talking to God, then you can do it right now.
Awesome. And so why should I pray?
Prayer is, as we've said, it's communication. So if you take my marriage, for example, if I were to never speak to my husband, you'd think it was a pretty rubbish marriage. It's a way of building up relationship. So in the same way, prayer builds that relationship with God. It's taking the time both to bring what's on your heart to God and take time to listen to what God has to say as well. God longs to have that relationship with you. And so prayer is there as that communication point between yourself and God.
That's great. And I love that idea of actually having to wait and see what God says to you too.
Yes.
Not just a one-way street.
Yes, definitely. I think that's actually one of the things that many people often miss out in prayer is they don't realise the act of communication it's a two-way thing. It's not just one person. Because if we never took time to listen to God, we'd never hear the answers that he has to give in what we're saying.
So good. So how do I pray then? If I wanted to start out fresh, I've never prayed before, how would I go about doing that?
So we've said anyone can pray. In the same way, you can pray at any time and in any place. It often helps people if they have a set time to focus themselves, especially if you want to see growth in your prayer time. So having an intentional time to pray, such as I take the morning to pray. First thing in the morning, I spend time praying specifically. But you can pray throughout the day. There's no set time when God's listening or he's not listening, essentially.
He doesn't have opening hours.
Yeah, he doesn't have opening hours, yeah. So it's the intentionality and regularity of it that builds the relationship that we've spoken of before, though. So it doesn't even have to look holy in terms of kneeling beside your bed, hands clasped together. It can be free-flowing, praying out loud. You can speak out loud. That really helps myself keep focus in terms of what I'm praying, because often if you're praying in your head, your mind can drift a little bit. But if you find you want a quiet time, God still hears the prayers that you are speaking in your head as well.
No, that's really good. I found myself, when I've been praying, sometimes especially when I first started to pray, I felt like I had to use all the fancy words, the who, arts and wherefores. And the reality is, actually, it's just a basic conversation.
It is, in the same way that you would talk to a close friend or a loved one. That's how you come before God and talk. There is an element of reverence there because of who God is, and remembering who God is in your prayers. You've got to come with humility as well. But, yeah, we don't have to use fancy language. Just speak as you are, because God created you and he knows who you are and he knows how you talk, and he will talk back to you using that similar language that you understand.
And I think it was really good what you said about you can pray anywhere, anytime. I think in my own life, I've really felt that, like if I've been at work and I've had a really difficult meeting or something, just being able to just, even in the meeting, just praying and just saying, Lord, I need you to be with me in this situation, or just before the meeting, or in the car. You can be anywhere, on the toilet maybe.
Yeah. I find my best times are often in the kitchen when I'm preparing dinner, because we have a busy home life and finding quiet space in the day is near impossible at the moment. But I know I'll have that time in the kitchen where I can just talk to God, say what's on my mind, and just lift things up to him. And like you said, just before work, if you're in the middle of a meeting, lifting up a prayer to him in that moment doesn't make it any less of a more valuable prayer than spending 5 hours behind closed doors kind of interceding for people's needs. So yeah, it's just as important, that one.
And what have you seen as the fruit of prayer in your life? What are the benefits of praying?
The benefits, wow. You can see circumstances and situations change. With your prayers, you have authority to speak into circumstances and pray God's will, and you come into knowing God's will through building that relationship with him. For me, one of the biggest things is getting to know God's heart more in prayer and spending time daily with him, especially through reading through his word. That often leads to time of prayer, and it transforms me as well. It brings peace, it can bring joy, it can just bring clarity into a situation. There's so much fruit that comes from praying.
Awesome. And so as we kind of wrap this up, if someone was sitting at home now and they were kind of listening to this and they were thinking, do you know what, I want to give that prayer thing a try, what would be your encouragement to them today?
My encouragement is just go for it. If you don't know where to begin, I'd always say start with thanksgiving. Think about what you're thankful for and tell that to God, because he loves to hear what you're thankful for. Thankfulness is it's an overflow of everything that God's done for us. And often that can then lead onto other things that we think of, and just flow with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's a conversation. That's all it needs to be.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing that with us, Rebecca.
It's okay.
If you've enjoyed today's video, I want to encourage you to get connected to us here at Life Church. We've created what we're calling The Journey, and The Journey is a great place for you to go and be equipped, encouraged, and resourced as you go out on your own personal journey of discovering who God created you to be. Inside of The Journey, you'll find all sorts of resources that are just right for you, no matter what stage of your journey with God you may be on. We'd encourage you to get connected to us via the link below and take this opportunity to grow in your journey with God.